Hey, this is Pablo Pasos from CaboLabs Health Informatics. What I will do on this video is to show you how to load the EHR server with some clinical data that is in the openEHR format. We will load compositions. So for this, we are going to run the EHR server. Now it's running on a virtual machine. It's a small virtual machine, so it will go a little slow, but it will work okay. And what we have to load data to commit clinical documents to the EHR server is a small application that I created. It's called the loader. So basically, we have the loader there, and I will show you what we will load into the EHR server. Basically, the EHR server that is running is the development version, so it is the latest code available, and it's empty. So what we will do is we will create some EHRs. We'll create 500 EHRs. The server will run on the same machine as the loader, so it will run on localhost on this port. And what the loader will do is to create the EHRs, and for each EHR, it will commit documents with demographic data. The demographic data is just documents that have the date of birth and sex of the patient. That will allow us to create queries based on age ranges or the sex of the patient. Then we will commit some documents with diagnosis. This is just a test of a consultation note that will have only diagnosis information. So it's pretty simple, pretty basic, and we will use that diagnosis to do some queries. Then we will commit some documents with weight data. So I created a structure for weight control. That document will have information about the weight of the patient, the height of the patient, and also the body mass index that is basically calculated from the weight and the height. And then we will commit some medication prescriptions to the EHR server. So I will commit one demographic document, two documents with diagnosis information. This will be coded diagnosis, and the codes that we will use is SNOMED CT codes. So those are standard codes. And the idea is to load the EHR server with those, so we can use SNOMED expressions on the second video, where I will show you how to query the EHR server using a combination of openEHR querying mechanisms and SNOMED expressions. So that will be fun. One weight control document and two medication prescriptions. So it will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 documents per EHR. So I will create 500 EHRs. So we'll have 6 documents per EHR. And I need to, since I changed the code, I will compile the loader again. I will generate the package, and I will run the loader. And on the logs, you will see if I have the window here of the EHR server, and here the window for the loader. You will see the logs first creating the EHRs and then starting to commit documents to each EHR. And the way that the loader will do these operations is via the REST API of the EHR server. So here we are generating the EHRs, and you can see there the number of EHR and also the result from the server, from the REST API of the EHR server. And yes, some data that is returned from the EHR server. Also, I will try to, let's see if I can check the memory consumption of the EHR server with the Java Visual VM. This is an application that comes with Java, because all these applications are built on Java technologies, so we can test the the loader created the 500 EHRs and now started to commit clinical documents to each EHR. Yeah. So about the Java Visual VM, this allows us to monitor some basic information of the running processes that are running on the virtual machine. So here is the CPU of the EHR server, and we have the memory consumption is pretty steady, so this is good. I already did a load test, a heavy load test on the EHR server that really loads more data than this that we are loading right now. This is just for testing. So you see that the memory consumption is steady, and after some documents are received by the EHR server starts to index the documents. So we have here the commit on the loader, and here we have the logs of the indexing process by the EHR server. The indexing process basically extracts data from the XML documents, and that data is used for querying. I will show you how to query that data on a second video. So basically, we just need to sit, wait, see if everything goes okay. We can check the memory, we can check the CPU. So we have some peaks, but it's all okay, and the memory is steady. So that is great. And that's it. It took this time in milliseconds to execute. So it was like, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes, 4 minutes, something like that. And if we check, the EHR server will keep indexing data until it indexes all the documents that were committed to each EHR. And if I check the user interface of the EHR server, the user interface of the EHR server is for administrative purposes. So this is not for end users. Remember that the EHR server is a backend application that allows to manage clinical data and query that clinical data. So it is basically a data store and allows to manage the information from many EHRs and the clinical documents and the versions of the clinical documents for each EHR. And there we have the clinical records. So 505, the extra 5 were EHRs that were created by default for testing. So when you run the EHR server, it starts with 5 EHRs, so you can test. Let's see if everything is loaded. It seems all the commits were done okay. It seems we missed some templates on the EHR server. So what I will do is to check if we have those templates loaded. This is basic configuration. So what I missed, the templates basically define the clinical document structure. and the loader checks for those definitions, those templates that define the clinical document structure. And if it's not loaded into the EHRServer, it returns an error. So here I need to find this one that is in Spanish is encounter with code diagnosis. I thought that was loaded. Let me upload it. So to upload a new template, you just go here. Sorry, the interface is in Spanish. I can go to English, but I have all the. I will do the demo in with the Spanish interface because I have the templates defined in Spanish. But it's the same for English templates. So this is code diagnosis, and this is the one that we need to upload. And the other one is the weight control. So it's control de peso in Spanish. So that template is loaded and the weight control. What you need to do when you start using the EHRServer is first to create the clinical models, these templates, and upload them into the EHRServer. So I have here the weight control template that defines the clinical document structure that contains the weight control, and that this is basically an XML with some constraints and structure definitions. Yeah. For instance, here you can find fields that will store, for example, this one will store the weight of the patient. So here you see that the weight is measured in kilograms or pounds here and here. So yeah, this is all the these are all the definitions. So what I will do is, since I missed some templates and also the medication prescription template, let's load it. When you have those templates, you just upload them to the EHRServer, and you will be able to commit clinical documents that comply with those templates. Yeah, and now we have those templates loaded. Yeah, here, here, and here. Those were the 3 missing templates. So what I will do is I will repeat the loading process. What I can do here, I will just shut down the server. Start it again. Since I'm running the EHRServer in development, it will delete the database and regenerate the whole database again. Yeah. And since I changed the loader, I will build it again. So I will repeat the process with those missing templates now loaded into the EHRServer. And these are common mistakes when you are working with the EHRServer. I didn't prepare this presentation, so I just want to share with you how the EHRServer is loaded with some test data. That's it. And we will do also the monitoring for the EHRServer. So we will check the memory consumption there and CPU. If you have a bigger machine than the one that I have, the virtual machine that I have here, the EHRServer will run faster, way faster. Yeah, this is very slow because it's running the development version that has a lot of extra stuff that is loaded from the Grails framework that is used was used to create the EHRServer. And when you run it on production mode and with a bigger server, a bigger machine with more CPU, more memory, it will run much faster. So now it's generating the database. So this will generate the whole schema for the database. We are using a MySQL database for the EHRServer. It can be changed to really to any relational database. You can change it to use, I don't know, maybe Postgres. Now is loading the templates. Yeah, and now it's running. The EHRServer is running again. And if you see the EHRServer user interface, will ask to log in again. And we'll see that we have just 5 EHRs. We should have just 5 EHRs. There. So this is the basic an empty EHR server with 5 EHRs here. If we go to the EHR section, you can see the 5, and we will create again the 500 EHRs and load some documents. And if you see the template section, now we have all the templates loaded here, so we won't have any issues. I will run the loader again. There we are, and now starts to generate the 500 EHRs. I can check on the dashboard. Those EHRs are being created, so you can see here that those are EHRs have been created. So when this number hits the 505, it will start to commit clinical documents. Each commit will be recorded as a contribution. The contributions will be counted here. And here we have all the templates that are loaded into the EHRServer. Now it finished to create the EHRs and now starts to commit clinical documents there. So there, that process is much slower than the create EHR process, because create EHR is pretty simple, and the structure of the EHR is pretty simple. But the commit process does a lot of the data structure validation and parsing and processing. So it takes longer than a commit of a clinical document takes longer than the create EHR service. Yeah, so it is slowly loading there. The EHRServer will start indexing those documents again. So it is loading and everything seems okay. Every commit is successful. On the right, this identifier is the identifier of the EHR where each document is committed to. And we can check here the process, the Grails process is the EHRServer, this one. I will double click that. These are the startup parameters. So there you see the memory assigned, etc., some configuration. What I need to see, what I'd like to see is the monitoring section. And the memory part is what worries me. So here you can see that there are peaks. So each peak means that one document is committed and the processing of that document is done, and it takes some, it has some complexity inside, because each commit also checks the format, checks some constraints, but also does versioning process, a versioning process that checks if the document is a new document or is a version of an existing document. So that is a really complex and long process, and I think those are the peaks of memory from those processes. Each peak might be a commit. Yeah, but CPU seems steady. Memory is not too high. So you can run the EHRServer in a very small server, really. I have a server with 1 CPU and 2 gigabytes of memory in the cloud, and it works smoothly. It works really fast. I think with 2 CPUs and 4 gigabytes of memory is a good minimal production environment for the EHRServer, and from there you can go up as you like. But the EHRServer is not, memory hungry. So you can see there the memory is steady, so some memory is used, but is also released. So that is why we have those peaks there. And the loader is still committing documents, and the EHRServer started to index the data of the documents that were committed previously. We can check where we are. We are good, and since we are going to have 105 times 6 clinical documents, because we are going to load 6 clinical documents per EHR, so we have something like 3,030 documents. So we need to wait until we hit the 3,030 contributions here, but we are on the right track. Everything looks okay. And here you can see, because everything is associated with an organization in the EHRServer, each EHR is associated with an organization, and clinical documents are associated with an EHR. So each organization, here you can have many hospitals or many clinics, many offices, and each office, each clinic, each hospital can have its own repository here, and you can manage many repositories. So here you can see the size of the repository for this organization. This is a test organization. The EHRServer basically is the default organization that is created when you run the application for the first time. You can use that for testing purposes, and that is what I'm doing right now. So you can see the size of the files that are stored in that repository. So we have a mixed data store. Some of the data is stored on the relational database, and the documents that are committed are stored in the format, in the openEHR format that we receive on the REST API on disk. There is a special folder there that is organized by organization. So documents from different organizations are not mixed together. So each organization has its own folder, and this is the size, basically the size of that folder. Okay. So when you want to query the EHRServer and you want to retrieve some data, and you want to retrieve full documents, what the EHRServer will do is to execute the query on the relational database and then retrieve the matching clinical documents from disk. So if you want the full document and the whole XML structure, it will return that. And the loader keeps loading, the EHRServer keeps indexing. We are good. Memory is steady, so we are good here. CPU is steady. Perfect. Everything is working okay. And while this is loading, what I will create on the second video is a small demo on queries. See, yeah, this is the query section. This is in Spanish, but it's the query section, and here you can create query groups. So you can group a set of queries by its intent. So if you are creating, I don't know, maybe I want queries that return documents based on certain diagnosis. So you can create a group that is diagnosis, and you can organize there all the queries that use the diagnosis to filter the clinical documents that the query will return when it's executed. And to create a query, you just click on the plus button. You don't need to have groups, but groups is a good way to organize when you have a lot of queries. So if I want to query for documents, I will select composition here, and then I need to select the template. The template will be one of those clinical document definitions, and inside the template there are a lot of concepts that I will use. For example, inside the demographic template, we have an entry with basic demographic data, and the data points defined under this concept are gender or sex and date of birth. And I can create a query, a criteria based on the definition of the gender. For example, that the gender is a code text, so it has a code, and is equals to masculine, for example. And I can add this, so I can add the criteria, and I have this inside the demographic entry for basic demographic. This path points to the gender node that is of type code text, and the condition that we will use to execute this query will be the code will be equals this code, and this code means masculine. And this code is defined inside an openEHR archetype. Yeah, but I will show you how to create queries based on the SNOMED expressions. So if you have some code diagnosis, and here we have the problem diagnosis archetype, this is a structure to report diagnosis or health problems. And here we have the coded diagnosis, this is the data point, and here we can define equals. So here I can write a specific diagnosis, a specific code, and this will be code in SNOMED CT, and this value comes from the template, or can be in a list of multiple codes. So I can write multiple codes, but will be this or this or this. Yeah, this will match to with the clinical document. But a better way is to use this operator, the in SNOMED expression. And here we will write a SNOMED expression. I will show you that in the second video. We will validate the SNOMED expression, and then we will execute the query that will use this SNOMED expression. And this SNOMED expression will be evaluated, validated, and then evaluated for the query using services provided by our partner. We are CaboLabs, and we have a partner that is a company from Spain called Veratech, and they provide services based on knowledge, really, so models, and also the SNOMED part. They have really good tools to work with SNOMED, and some of those tools, they created services to evaluate SNOMED expressions, and I integrated those services into the openEHR queries. So this is basically the query builder screen where I created queries, and I created these in SNOMED expression special operator. And here you can specify, I don't know, you can say, hey, I want all the clinical documents from all the patients that have diagnosis that is some type of respiratory infection or any type of diabetes. we have many types of diabetes. So every data that is modeled into the SNOMED terminology, you can query by that. And you can query by the subtypes also, the specializations of those codes or the generalizations of those codes. So you can query for any type of something. Yeah, and that includes health problems, conditions. Also, SNOMED has medications, has some procedures, laboratory tests, etc. So we can use SNOMED expressions to grab a subset of the SNOMED concepts, and we use that subset integrated into openEHR queries to check data modeled with openEHR. So I will do that after this is loaded and everything is indexed. So I will check the dashboard. So we have all the documents there. We have all the EHRs. The EHRServer is still indexing the data, but I will finish this video right now, and I will wait until the EHRServer finishes to index all the data. Yeah, and we can check the memory. We are okay. You can see there are no peaks here because we finished the commit process. Also, the CPU went down. Yeah, it was around 50, a little lower, maybe 50%. And this is just using one CPU. So it is very good. And these peaks are when the indexing job runs, really. And it takes some data to index into the relational database. So everything is looking good. So yeah, I will finish this video right now and wait until everything is indexed and it's still indexing some data there. We can execute a query right now, but we won't get all the data out because the data needs to be indexed, but it will work if we query right now. But I will wait until we have all the data loaded, and yeah, maybe in 5-10 minutes I will do the second video with a couple of examples of querying using openEHR queries and mixing that with a couple of SNOMED expressions that is just for testing purposes to show you how this all works. And I think that will be interesting for some of you. So if you are developing EHRs, if you are working with clinical data repositories, if you're interested in openEHR, if you're interested in SNOMED, this will be useful for you. Yeah, that's it for now. I will wait and come back online again. Bye-bye.